Another huge success is a project undertaken initially in Newfoundland. Concept there has been that in partnership with the Memorial University and municipalities of Newfoundland was to develop a product that communities, small communities, rural communities could use to evaluate their risk to climate change impacts. And the concept is that once it's developed, the partners, both the Department of Environment and municipalities of Newfoundland, will be able to present it to a community as a step-by-step, easily understandable in language where you're not talking to engineers and planners and experts, but local politicians, etc. How to review your community in terms of vulnerabilities and produce a plan that will both prioritize action and incorporate options for addressing your vulnerabilities. It's been so successful that it's been adopted by PEI. You'll note that it's being piloted in PEI. The concept here is that in each province, this issue of climate change vulnerability is so unique to the area that the document that Newfoundland has produced is being adapted for PEI, just to put it in their context, so that when a person picks it up, they understand it, on a local level. There are pilots undergoing in New Brunswick as well. Not sure that Nova Scotia is adopting this particular tool, but it's quite clear that Nova Scotia will expect out of every community some form of vulnerability to climate change assessment and adaptation and mitigation plan.
I think the Service Nova Scotia guidebook actually has made use of this tool. Yeah.
So there you go, a nice collaborative approach to developing something that we think will be a really valuable tool to our communities in Atlantic Canada. This is an example of a groundwater study that's underway in two sites in PEI. It's also similar, not necessarily exactly the same. There are studies underway in Rishabukto, New Brunswick, Pugwash in Nova Scotia, Western Newfoundland, and down in the valley. Concept being here is protecting freshwater aquifers from saltwater intrusion. Initially, the concept or thought process was, hey, if sea level rises, the interaction between freshwater and saltwater is going to change, and very possibly the freshwater supplies are going to be inundated. Interestingly, that the preliminary results were, there's some of the data collection is still ongoing, but the preliminary results indicate that sea level rise is going to have a very small effect. The real effect is erosion and the demand on those aquifers, where it's instead of a push of salt water into the groundwater supply, it's more of a pull as the groundwater supply either shrinks or starts to flop over into the saltwater boundary. So I guess what we'll likely take away from this is, we've got to either recite or take into account that rates of erosion before we put in a well in a local or rural community or coastal community. And then beyond these projects that we're undertaking at the community level, there's a numerous number of projects supporting these vulnerability assessments and local projects, some that are fundamental to our understanding of the whole issue of climate change. In most provinces, I think all provinces, we've developed some climate scenarios as to what we expect for climate over the next 50 to 100 years. The concept of taking the GCM, the global circulation models, down to a granularity that are actually relevant to our local communities. We've done a phenomenal amount of LiDAR, air photo, and satellite imagery, largely for the pilot communities so that we can develop flood risk maps, digital elevation maps, etc. But, you know, for instance, in the case of PEI, I believe the entire island was done in, you know, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, probably more focused on the communities that were involved in our projects. In a general sense, we're looking at the whole concept of socio and economic scenarios. What is there besides the physical interaction between water and land that's important when you're constructing a climate change action plan? Another mistake on here, municipal policy review. That's not just Nova Scotia. I think all provinces, to a degree, are looking at what policy levers are available to current decision makers, and what changes or what gaps exist, and what changes might be recommended for policy in order to protect those communities. We've had human resources going right out into the communities to help them with their community assessments or vulnerability assessments. There's interaction with the emergency management organizations as to, okay, if this is what the scenario looks like X numbers of years from now, how can we change our emergency management plan? The PEI, I believe this one, extreme weather events catalog, just an interaction with the population on exactly what's your recollection of this particular weather event, what impact did it have on your community, and so on. And some interesting things have arisen. I don't know why all the PEI examples come to mind, but the last meeting they recollected where they were interviewing one community that, you know, the description of that particular weather event was, oh yeah, that was the time when farmer somebody and there's pigs were swimming down the main street because the water was so high. We're also another project with the intensity, duration, and frequency curves. Very, very important tool for those who are making decisions on new infrastructure or updating infrastructure. And the issue here being that these curves and the data that's available to us to produce these curves is quite dated. And with the acceleration of weather events and 20-year and 100-year storms, they're just not adequate for the types of building decisions and infrastructure decisions that we're making right now. And again, across the board, we've looked at producing some documents that are structural, both in terms of general themes, erosion, shoreline protection, etc. And now I'm going to try to speed it up. I think I can see you guys have been talking too long here. Part of the process that we're going through at the community level, and some of the experiences that we've learned, is that there's still a job to be done, certainly at the community level, of developing awareness and changing the mindset there. Saying, you know, some people just think, number one, climate change. I can't do anything about it. It's happening. Number two, you know, I have no tools or resources to deal with that. What I do is, you know, whenever we get a flood, something breaks, we wait for the federal government to come with their wallet and they clean it up. So what we are attempting to do, and I think our experience has been with mentoring some of these communities, is they're building an awareness that this is what climate change adaptation looks like. The fact that we rebuilt that bridge really stronger than the last time, if you ask them why, they don't relate it to adaptation. But all of a sudden, when you make that connection, they go, oh yeah, Yeah, that's the kind of things we can do. We can make those decisions to bolster and protect our community. And that's all being done through a process of communicating these ideas and these concepts to the decision makers. We're also recognizing that there's also due to the nature of our region, a lot of communities, well, once they get the concept of adaptation, there's not a lot of technical resources in the smaller town. There's not a planner, there's not an engineer, there's not, a lot of folks that can deal with the technical side of things. So from two perspectives, one, we have to present it in a manner that they can understand and internalize, and also give them the types of tools that they can move on and take action and feel an ownership of this problem, and not say it's a federal government remediation problem. And embed the whole concept of climate change in all their decisions. So this is just a general sense of where we are today in the process. We certainly have done a lot of data gathering. We've produced a significant amount of digital imaging, flood risk maps, and produced or begun the process and then sometimes finished the process of assessment. And we're moving at this point between now and the end of the project at a focus towards policy development and recommendations, options for our communities and those responsible for coastlines. But as you can see, well, we're going to run out of federal involvement in terms of funding in March, but we still have another 6 months to tie all these projects together using our provincial money, and going to deliver what we refer to as the Atlantic Adaptation Toolkit, which will be available to practitioners, public, anybody who wants to assist them in making the kind of decisions they have to address climate change. Last but not least, and this may be the right place to mention this or not, but we've run up against a couple of issues that we're finding challenging. Two of the particular are in what I referred to earlier as the IDF curves. The whole issue is that the data is not there. We also, as you can see, if I realized